Shaft diesels, bow and stern thrusters, upper and lower helm without a side door, but this, ladies and gentlemen, is Australia's #1 selling Azimut. So in this video, we're going to test it. Coming on the port side, use the fly bridge. Azimut say that this boat will cruise at 26 knots and top out around about 31 knots. We're running the D13 900 horsepower. She's about 36 tonne overall and 2,800 litres of fuel. We got 64% on board today. And I reckon a lot of you are going to be actually coming up from IPS drives. And this is a shaft drive boat. So many of you are possibly going to be weighing up the pros and cons of shaft versus IPS in a 60-foot boat. So I'll try and touch on that later in the video, but right now, let's get her up to speed and let's talk about how she performs. This helm has got some interesting things going on, so I will also demo that at some point through the video. Dan Jones is my name. You're watching Dan's Boat Life. Thank you for joining, and it is a beautiful day in Sydney town. It's nice to be back in the Southern Hemisphere. The weather is amazing. So right now we're doing 1,080 revs, we've got 9.8 knots, and in terms of our wash, that is just on the borderline of acceptable. So I'm driving in twin levers. I can select over to single lever if you prefer, and we do have the joystick through shafts with thrusters. So that's going to be an interesting concept, which does have some new features added to it, which I've not demoed before. The rudders will actually go left and right independently, so we will be checking that out as well. Let's just bring the boat right up through the rev range. Okay, 70 litres an hour total consumption at 11 knots and climbing, 1,200 revs. I'm just going to get it right on the plane. It's summer's day. Even though it's midweek, everyone's going to be out and about, so I've got to get this boat moving so I can steer clear of traffic. I'm going to just leave that ferry on my port side. Coming up through 1,600 revs, 15 knots and climbing, minimal bow raise, a little bit, which is noticeable. And if I stand flat on the floor, I still have viz over the instruments, but just at my 5'7" height at that 16 knot range. So then let's increase that speed. You can feel the torque. Okay, to you guys comparing IPSs versus shafts, you do notice that pickup on a shaft drive boat in terms of the torquiness through acceleration. It is a nice feeling. All right, I'm going to raise my height a little bit. This central pillar provides a little bit of a hindrance to my visibility, but moving around makes it okay. Remember, we've got the upstairs driving station, which we will check out later in the video. I can feel the cutting action of the bow doing her thing. We're going into the wind. I'm now doing 20 knots and I'm going to increase that speed a little bit. 240 litres an hour total consumption, 1,900 revs, making a decent amount of wash. Ferry and traffic to port, clear up ahead, and I got one social boat which is going to be in our way, so we will go wide of him. Okay, so going into the wind chop, I got boat wash now and starting to white cap, so the wind has increased from a northerly direction moderately since we filmed on the drone. Going through the waves now, let's just see if we get any water over the bow. These waves are noticeable. Okay, dry, dry, dry. Some of that is going to be an effect of that little flare that you notice right up on the front of the bow. So that design does actually have a useful feature to it. I got one boat on port. I'm going to have to go a little bit wide of him, increasing my speed. 2,100 revs, consumption of 289 total. Okay, I've got the gyro off, so I'm allowing the boat to heel here, and I've got a speed of 25 knots. They said it would cruise at 26. Let's increase the power and see what happens. Okay, 2,180. Let's get it to 2.2. Oh, that feels like it's boogieing right there, and we're actually on 27. Okay, I'm going to say, now it isn't flat water, but 27 feels like a really lovely cruise speed. Let's just feel that for a second. I got a little bit of A little bit of sea coming in from the exposed part of the heads there. It's more wind chop at the moment and then boat wash. You do notice these pillars here reducing a little bit of your visibility, but if that's an issue, obviously just go to the flybridge. The air conditioning on the helm is lovely on this hot day that we've got today. And just maintaining that cruising speed at that 27 knots, and I'm going to increase it to full speed when we're going downwind because that's when my drone can keep up. Azimut 43 Magellano. G'day guys. So I'm going to cut between him and the rocks just so you can get some pretty pictures. My fuel flow is hovering around that 290 to 300 total, and my speed into the wind is 27. So while Azimut say 26, I'm getting 27, but they've probably factored in a full load. So if you had full fuel and guests, I'm going to say they're right. That makes sense to me. Okay, just coming around, checking for traffic. All good. Engine noise levels are really good actually, considering this is a shaft drive. Vibration levels are minimal, and I'm liking this hull design. You've got 22 degrees of dead rise in the middle, amidships of the boat, and as we're going through this choppy water now, there isn't any great deal of swell, but there is considerable wind chop and boat wash. This is quite a comfortable sensation. So let's take around a sweeping turn and start to increase our power. Okay. So if you were on a long journey, you have a few options here at the helm. All right, I'm going to increase that power a little bit, just going 29 knots, 340 litres total consumption. Speed still at 27, heel angle is good, visibility's fine, I can adjust my height, going through some real waves now, just a few little ones that came in from the sea there, and sitting on 29 knots. That is at a rev of 2,320 revs. And we'll be out of those small waves coming in from the sea in a second. They're coming on my port bow. So the carbon fibre in the top sides of all Azimuts, it is noticeable when you've driven a few boats and you see too much weight aloft. It's either going to give you a little bit of a rocky ride if you have heaps of weight aloft, or it's just going to affect your overall performance. The sensation I get when I drive these Azimuts, it's more sporty. So if you're the sort of person who enjoys a fun ride, you are going to get that from an Azimut. Let's just tuck in around here. I've got a warship exiting, so he's going to be doing about 10 to 15 knots. That gives me just enough time to stay out of his way, and let's start increasing speed. Okay, so I've got the trim assist on, full throttle, 2,370 revs, giving me 30 knots downwind. 30 knots with the trim assist, 30 and a half. Oh, they said 31. Let's just go trim assist off. A little bit of a manual trim here and see what happens. Here we go. There's 31. And let's just give it a little trim up, see if that does anything beneficial to us. 30.8, and now let's do a little bit of a trim down. And it's much of a muchness. So now I'm going to reactivate trim assist. So I feel like you lose about maybe half a knot. So if you want to get that optimum speed, you might have to switch over to manual. And then with these twin 900 horsepower motors, you're going to see a top speed of around about that 30 to 31 on a good day. So let's just keep ripping it around the corner here. She makes a decent wash. She makes a lot of wash. So if that bothers you, don't go buy a 60-foot boat. All right, so those of you who are considering a shaft drive versus IPS, and to my earlier point, I suspect many of you will actually be stepping up into this boat from a smaller IPS because they're so prevalent in the market today. What are your pros and cons? Think about your experience level, how many boats you've driven before. Think about where you need to operate and park the boat. And then think about the different sensations you're going to get on the raw torque of a shaft versus what is now a slow, gradual input and decreasing of power on an IPS drive. So I'm actually just going to slow down. I've got helicopter landing ship to port, but he's well clear of me, and no traffic coming into the bay. So we're just coming in at 26 knots. We'll come off the plane, and then I'll keep talking about those differences in a second. You do see moderate bow raise on deceleration there, and we'll go up to the flybridge and check that out as well. Before we do that, let's just check our wash. 1800 revs, slowing down to 23 knots. Braking into the bay, brake right, everyone's clear, and I'm going to tuck in here out of the wind, just in the wind shadow with this land, and we'll just keep talking about those differences there. So, for all you traditional guys who are used to shaft drives, you're already going to understand that there is a historical love for many of you because you are used to and you want shaft drives. There is an operational advantage perceived by some of you because they are very torquey and they'll kick in and out of gear and give you a sense of ultimate control. And for those of you who've driven manual cars versus automatic, and you love that control that you get on a manual, that is possibly a reason why you would select a shaft drive. When it comes down to the millimeter accuracy in and around the dock, that's where shaft drives have actually suffered a little bit. I can hear you on the phone. That's Pete. So that's traditionally been a reason for you to swap or change over to an IPS, because the millimeter accuracy, the station holding abilities negates the necessity for a second crew member. You can really operate some of these big 60-foot boats as a solo operator. What we have on this boat is joystick through shaft drives and the thrusters. So it all talks together. It's a Volvo Penta system, and you've got a couple of options. You can actually, the top right button just here allows you to sit in the seat, and I told you I would try it out. This seat's pretty cool. You've got a little footstep that drops down there, and this bolster that drops down, I don't know what this material is, some sort of leather. It's pretty cool. But, okay, see how kind of comfortable this is? So if you are on a decent run up or down the coast, which I suspect many of you would be on this boat because you're going to treat it like a holiday house, you don't necessarily want to be standing up for that whole time. You probably want to be on autopilot and just keeping a lookout for whales and traffic. So in that case, you could put it onto joystick steering, which would just allow you to do steering adjustments with the joystick. Very relaxing. You could even just sit in this seat if you wanted to, leave the throttles as they are and operate it in that manner. Next thing, if you're just coming into the dock and you want to drive traditional sticks but have the thrusters in operation, the bottom right hand button does that for you. So you can actually just side slip the boat using the thrusters. So I'm doing that now and operate it in that fashion. And then the final thing is the docking. But what we're going to do right now, let's try transverse thrust. I'll actually just get the boat spinning. I've got some wind blowing me towards the city. So this is wheel centered. I've got a rudder angle indicator on the screen just here. So if you're not sure, you can check it. So this is good old transverse thrust. So one forward, one reverse. That is very responsive. I can speed that up. Fantastic. You're not going to struggle with controlling the boat in that manner using the throttle. So now I can stop that. What I can now do is press docking, and then by swiveling the joystick like many of you are going to be used to with your old IPS boat, let's spin it around. Now look at that. That's quicker than what we just experienced. Now let's try and reverse the direction of travel. Very good. That is very, very good. So from a spinning the boat on the dime perspective, that works great. But now what I want to do, actually I should better just stick the boat down, pointing downwind so it replicates my drone shots. Now we also have the ability to side slip the boat like possibly you've already done on your IPS boat in the past and what you will be used to. So let's just try that out and see if that's any good. We've got some boat wash coming in, so let's just activate stabilizer. There we go, the gyro should be on. And let's side slip it to starboard. So what's going on now, guys, is the throttles are going in and out of gear, but the rudders are moving independently to put that prop wash out in the direction required to achieve a side slip. In unison, the same time, the both bow and stern thruster are operating as well. Let's just go back the other way. Can you hear the thrusters? So that's, I'm going into some waves. I'm not in a marina environment, so it's just a bit of a simulation here. So that's not as good as an IPS, but it's pretty darn good. So if you combine this technology, and you just go back to the throttles or disengage, that's what I was doing there. If you are used to driving an IPS and you want that feedback or that sensation that you're used to, but you're now going to maybe train yourself up on shaft drives or utilize the other technology like yacht controller to leave the helm and maneuver the boat or dockmate, that's actually pretty good. It's not as good or as millimeter accurate as an IPS, but for a big 60-foot boat that we really want to be able to equip ourselves to operate single-handed or with one crew member, depending on your skill set, I'm going to say with the right amount of practice, that is possible. So that's pretty good. Let's just operate this seat. So you get a little sledge here, flipping that up is okay. And then if you want to push this up, just make sure to put your hand there if you're putting that bolster up to give you that space. That's all pretty good. So I'm just going to position the boat and, okay, clear of all the wind. Let's head up to the flybridge and have a look at the visibility from up there. Okay, so it's inside stairs. That's all pretty easy to get access to. If I want to take control, I just press station here and I have control. That's good. Got my same instrument feed out display just up here. First thing worth noting, the helm is now on the port side. So if you don't have yacht controller or dockmate accessible to you, you would be driving from the helms. So therefore, if you want to come in the port side, use the flybridge. Starboard side may be easier as well. Don't forget you've got opening windows on port and starboard downstairs. They're electrically operated. No helm door. So that's just one of those things. You work that out. Most boats in this category that we're competing with don't actually have the helm door. So I just wanted to give you a feeling for the visibility. It's epic up here. So I can see all the way up the side decks, the bow. This is going to be the place that you're probably going to want to enjoy your holidays and your weekend driving from most of the time. Pay attention to the carbon fiber roof going all the way forward, so bathing me in shade. So skipper and navigator are going to be completely protected, and I do suspect you're going to do most of your driving from up here. I can operate the anchor. I've got my bi-data. I've got my engine feedback just here. I got 2 screens, Raymarine on this boat. This wheel is adjustable, and the joystick operation is here on the port side. So you're doing it with your left hand this time, whereas you could probably do it from both hands downstairs. VHF as well. Now, the only thing that you are going to need to factor in, which is what I wanted to point out, you'll see this in the walkthrough, the the real estate that we have available to us up here is amazing. It's really, really good. That's down to having carbon fiber, lowering the weight, allowing us to put more structure up here. However, it means you cannot see the stern platform. So if you're speccing this boat up, put a reverse camera on the options list. You're gonna need that, in my opinion, and I'd want to have that on this screen here at all times when I'm doing close quarters maneuvering, so I can just see what's going on. You can't even really look through down there too easily. It's just one of those things. Most boats in this category, if you're going to have that extended flybridge, that's what you're going to have. So just factor it in. Yacht controller, remote, and or a camera. I would just do both. Make your life easy for yourself. So yeah, that's it. That's all I wanted to show you. The wind is going to be in your hair, obviously, if you're up here driving. So if you've got a problem with that, go downstairs. Anyway, well, let's go sit somewhere in the sun and wrap this video up. So engine shutdown can be done from up here as well. And that's the boat, ladies and gents. So 26 knots cruise. Well, I reckon it was more like 27 from what we just discovered. 31 knots top speed. Yeah, we just got there with the right amount of trim, and so you're probably going to hover around that depending on your load and conditions on the day. So for those of you thinking about IPS versus shaft drive, that's probably going to be a big question for many of you. I see this boat as somewhere in the middle because of this cool joystick technology, operating the rudders independently of one another, diverting that thrust or that wash from the props. It's not as good or as millimeter accurate as an IPS. It's probably not what you're looking for. The props are hugely torquey, give you an immense amount of control. If you're a manual driver, if you ride motorbikes, if you're looking for feedback, that's what I've always found and enjoyed on an Azimut. So if that's what you like to do, if you like to be in control and get some feedback out of your boat, this is a great boat to do it on. If you want something somewhere in the middle of straight shaft and IPS, giving you extra control, but you are still going to have to use your skill set to maneuver this 60-foot boat, 36 ton worth of thing, then this is it. And it's very good looking. So yeah, I think there's a wonderful place in the market. I see why it's so popular with so many Australian owners, and who, from what I understand, are coming up from other Azimuts or already own other Azimuts. I can see why they're sticking within the family, because it is a bit of an iconic brand and it's giving you a unique experience. So that's kind of cool. So if you get some value out of that, guys, don't forget to subscribe, give me a like, share it with all your mates. I really do love all your feedback, and let me know if you agree or disagree with my points. You know, I'm not perfect. I like to hear what some of you have to say. So get in there, and then if you want to see something else, I'll pop it up on the screen right now. Click on that and see what you think. Thanks, guys.